Independence, Missouri, in the United States of America. Home to Louise Dickey. 63-year-old Louise Dickey had previously worked in accounting in Kansas City. After being involved in a serious car accident, Louise had suffered massive injuries that had left her unable to walk far or able to lift more than 5 pounds in each hand. Her injuries had left her needing to take pain medication, but in spite of this, she was always cheerful and happy, and so grateful for the help and support she had. Her daughter Miranda was close by and on hand to help, and her neighbour Barbara would also help out where she could. Miranda would visit her weekly to help out and also check on Chloe, Monkey and Reba, Louise's cats. One of Louise's biggest loves was music. She loved music so much, in fact, she named one of her cats Reba after her favourite star, Reba McEntire. She lived alone and mostly kept to herself. Her family was also small. Her mother lived in Lee's Summit with Miranda's brother. There was also an uncle who lived in Detroit, but there were few other family members apart from them. She loved nothing more than spending time listening to records with her best friend Kevin. Kevin said she was gentle and kind, a real character. March 29, 2016. Miranda was contacted by Louise's neighbour Barbara. She wanted to know if Louise had gone out of town and forgotten to tell her, as her car was no longer parked in the driveway. No, she hadn't. This was extremely unusual, and there was no reason at all for her car to be gone. Straight away, Miranda called her mother. The call went straight to voicemail. No answer. Wasting no time, Miranda jumped in her car and drove over to Louise's house at the 10400 block of East 27th Street. She parked at Barbara's and Barbara was stood waiting outside for her. Miranda let herself into her mom's home and called out, but it was quiet. Looking to her right, she noticed her mother's purse on the sofa, with the Ziploc bags that she usually kept in her purse, which were empty. As she headed down the hall trying to find Louise, her daughter spotted the bathroom door. It was shut. The bathroom door was never shut. Miranda even said she had never ever known that bathroom door to be closed. As she slowly went into the bathroom, she came across a nightmarish scene. Her mother's body lay in the bathtub. She had been stabbed to death, suffering a shocking 98 stab wounds. Her throat had also been cut. Miranda immediately called 911.
Okay. Can you found your mother deceased? Where is she at? In the bathtub right now. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I can transfer you to the paramedics if you think you can help her.
The emergency services were soon at the scene, with Detective Bryce Minter heading the murder investigation. There was blood absolutely everywhere in the bathroom, and the violence of this murder was plain to see. The officers asked Miranda about Louise's empty purse, and Miranda explained that not only was that extremely weird, but she couldn't find her mother's cell phone. The police put in a request for information on the missing bank cards and a ping on the cell phone. A BOLO, or be on the lookout, was also issued for the missing vehicle, a golden 1998 Buick Park Avenue. Miranda was taken to the station to be interviewed.
When was the last time you heard from Mom?
About 5:30 yesterday.
You called her or see her in person?
She Facebook messaged me and said, I can't find my phone, can you call it? Which is a pretty frequent thing. So I called her phone, and she picked it up and said, okay, found it, thanks. And I said, okay, love you more. And she said, love you more.
She didn't seem concerned about anything or anything like that. Anybody at the house?
No.
And she wasn't seeing anybody, like as a boyfriend, or she didn't frequent bars to go meet people, or anything else that would help us. Never heard anybody.
The crime was shocking for those in the community, with neighbours calling the area safe and quiet. Seeing so many police and forensics officers and journalists was extremely rare. It's a quaint and charming little mom-and-pop neighbourhood. There are a lot of retired people that live around here and a few young families, said one resident. 41 Action News spoke to at least a dozen neighbours from Louise's street, but none of them really knew anything about her. She never came outside for nothing, said one neighbour who lived just a few doors down from Louise. Some neighbours said they didn't even know anyone lived at the house. We thought the home was abandoned because you don't see anybody in there, said one neighbour, who could see Louise's house from her backyard. A couple of miles away from the murder scene, Officer Jason Harris was on patrol, and after hearing about the BOLO, he set off to search for the vehicle, and, less than an hour later, he he found it. It was parked in a convenience store parking lot on Truman Road. The owner of the store told them it had been there since the night before. Detective Minter soon arrived and noticed something that could hold the key. Pointing in the direction of the car was a security camera. They went into the store and requested to view the footage. They stood waiting for the car to come into frame, and finally it did. The car was driven to the parking spot, and out got a young male who walked towards the convenience store. They needed to be sure that whoever was driving the car was alone. They pulled footage from a different camera which showed an empty passenger seat. They then switched to the camera from inside the shop and waited for the man to walk in. Given how violent the murder was, they were expecting him to have traces of blood on his hands and clothes. But there was no blood to be seen. He could be seen shaking hands with someone in the store, someone he clearly knew, before getting out a phone and attempting to call somebody. As he moved into the store and headed towards the back, footage from another camera showed him walking up to the ATM. He took out a card and tried to withdraw money, but it didn't work. He then left the store and got back into Louise's car, but he didn't drive off. 19 seconds later, he got out of the car and walked back into the store. He spoke to an employee before leaving once more. Luckily, that member of staff was in and working that day. Officers showed him the clip, hoping he would be able to ID the man in question, but the employee couldn't. He couldn't even remember talking to him. It was extremely disappointing for the police. At 18:26, the man was seen exiting the vehicle and waving towards an approaching dark Ford Focus. The car stopped and he got in on the passenger side before it drove off. Frustratingly, the footage was not very clear and a license plate could not be made out. They looked at another camera from the parking lot to try and get a clearer image of the driver. The driver was shorter, leading them to believe it was possibly a woman driving. They examined the car more closely. There was a missing hubcap on the driver's side, and as the car pulled onto the road, the hubcap was also missing from the passenger's side. They needed to find the car and they needed to find the driver, so another BOLO was issued.
That's right, Chris. As you said, that homicide victim identified by Independence Police as 63-year-old Louise M. Dickey. Now, this morning, police were here at this convenience store at Truman and River, collecting what could be a key piece of evidence in the case, surveillance video. Now, earlier today, police were back on the scene of that homicide at 27th and Hardy Road. The victim was discovered there Tuesday afternoon when her daughter came to the house to check on her after getting a call from a neighbor that the victim's car was missing. And that's what brings us back to this convenience store. Tonight, a clerk here told me police were at the store around 10:30 this morning getting surveillance video from the store's owner. Now, Independence Police have not said whether the car found here is related to the homicide of Louise Dickey, but officers also tell me that detectives are still actively investigating this case, and tonight the search for a suspect continues.
As the officers headed back to the station, a vital piece of the puzzle was coming in: the bank records for Louise Dickey. It showed that the day before, at 17:11, her card had been used at a Walgreens store. This was 23 minutes before her last call with Miranda. Knowing that this shopping trip and the transaction would have been caught on camera, the officers wasted no time in heading over. The footage began to play, and at 7 minutes past 5, the car pulled into the parking lot. 2 people got out and headed inside. Footage from inside the Walgreens showed that it was Louise, with the mystery man who had left her car in the convenience store. They purchased several items before leaving. This was not long before the police believed she had been murdered. Who was this man, and how did he know Louise? Miranda was shown the footage at the station, with the officers being hopeful she would be able to shed light on who he was, but she couldn't identify him. So the officers went back to the bank records. Where had her car been used after Walgreens? At 2:02 a.m. on the day her body was discovered in the bathroom, her card had been used again, at a Quick Trip in Kansas City, Missouri. Someone had tried to take out $300, which had failed. 1 minute later, there was an attempt to withdraw $100. Luckily for the officers, this Quick Trip also had surveillance cameras. From the footage taken at 2:02 a.m, the blonde man from the convenience store and Walgreens could be seen standing at the ATM, trying to get money out of Louise's bank account. They looked at footage from other cameras in the store, hoping there would be a clearer image of his face. And sure enough, there was. This was the man they believed had brutally murdered Louise Dickey in her own home. They needed to find him, and find him quickly. As he left the store, he got into a car parked outside that had its headlights on, suggesting someone was sat in the vehicle waiting for him. It was a dark Ford Focus with the driver's side hubcap missing, the same vehicle that had picked him up from the convenience store. They decided to talk to other people in Louise's life to see if any of them knew who this man was. They showed the footage to her neighbour Barbara. She not only knew him, she was related to him. He was her nephew, Corey King, 26 years old and from Kansas City. Barbara was quickly taken into a room to be formally interviewed.
Corey's your nephew?
Yeah,
Okay, how did he become acquainted with you?
through me.
What kind of drugs is he involved in?
He was shooting up something at one time. But I don't know.
15 hours after requesting the ping, Louise's cell phone responded. It was showing at the Ameristar Casino 10 miles outside of Independence. Officers raced over there hoping to find Corey. But when they arrived, there was no sign of him, and there was no sign of the Ford Focus. They spoke to the casino and asked to review the surveillance footage from the last few hours. At 3:20, Corey was picked up. He was talking to someone, but that person was just out of frame. But not for long. As Corey walked over to the ATM, a woman followed. The police theorized that this was the person who had been driving him around in the Ford Focus. Corey tried Louise's card again, but he got nowhere. At 4:08 a.m., Corey was seen walking out of the casino with the woman, and the Ford Focus was seen driving away, signalling to turn right out of the casino premises. But as the car got to the end of the road, it stopped. Then after a pause, it turned left instead. Worried that Corey may try to flee the state, and knowing that he was clearly dangerous and capable of extreme violence, a crime bulletin was issued to all police agencies in the area. Phone records from Louise's phone showed that when Corey had been on the phone in the convenience store, he had used her phone to place the call, and all of these calls had been to the same number. Finally, the police would get the break they were hoping for. Another ping had come through from the phone, and officers had the car in question under surveillance. It was parked at a motel. Wasting no time, officers raced over, and Corey and the woman were taken into custody. When Corey was taken in for questioning, he denied having anything to do with the murder of Louise Dickey, but his lies would soon catch up with him. 24 hours after Louise Dickey's body was discovered, Corey finally told the truth. He said that during the time he had been under the influence of drugs and an argument had broken out, Louise wouldn't let him sleep on her sofa. He said he told her he couldn't leave due to the effects of the drugs in his system, but she wouldn't let him stay. He told the investigators that he had grabbed a box cutter from in the house, gone up behind Louise, grabbed her and slit her throat. When she grabbed her neck, he cut her again. He then dragged her body to the bathroom and put her into the tub, before continuing to stab her with another knife. Why? Because he said he felt like she didn't trust him. He stole $10, her phone, her debit card, prescription medication from her purse, and the key to her 1998 Buick Park Avenue.
She got upset with you where? I don't remember, man. It was all I remember is the bathtub. Okay, that's all right. Like it wasn't like it happened in the bathtub, but I blacked out. Like I told you, that wasn't a lie. You didn't black out. You may have been high on drugs, but I'm going to tell you, you got us to the bathtub, and you know exactly what we know. She was killed in the bathtub. You killed her. She was in the bathtub. Am I correct in saying that? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, I am correct. You killed her in the bathtub.
26-year-old Corey King was charged with armed criminal action and first-degree murder. Prosecutors requested a $500,000 cash bond. There was no evidence to suggest that the woman from the Ford Focus had anything to do with what had happened to Louise, and as such she was released without charge.
Right now, a 26-year-old man is facing a murder charge in Independence after police say he killed a woman using a box cutter. 41 Action News reporter Tom Dempsey is live from the home where Louise Dickey was killed. And Tom, what do friends and family think happened at this point?
Well, guys, the police are saying that Corey King was at Louise Dickey's house here on Monday evening. I'll step out of the way so our viewers can get a better look. This is on East 27th Street, right near Hardy Avenue in Independence. After going to a gas station and a Dollar General together, police say King murdered Dickey in the bathroom of this home. Here's a look at King's mugshot. According to police, King has a history of substance abuse. He claims he was high on marijuana and Xanax during the murder. Police say King's aunt was good friends with Dickey. He told police he wanted to sleep on Dickey's couch on Monday night, and when she refused, he stabbed her multiple times using a box cutter and a knife. Friends and family describe Dickey as being caring and always happy. As you can imagine, they are shocked at this crime.
She never hurt anybody. She was open and generous. She'll be dearly missed by everyone who knew her.
I don't think I could ever forgive him. I'm a Christian, but I could not forgive him for what he did.
Now, police say King stole Dickey's car, then later found that car at a nearby gas station. King tried to use Dickey's ATM card as well as her cell phone. Using that, police were able to track him down and arrest him at a motel in the metro area.
For Louise's loved ones, Corey's actions were nothing short of devastating.
As you can imagine, the family is very much shocked following all this. The crime is really tough to believe, and it happened in this house you see behind me here in Independence when a man stabbed Louise Dickey multiple times inside of her bathroom. For family members of Louise Dickey, it's hard to believe.
My mom mostly kept to herself. She was on disability and lived alone.
Dickey was murdered inside her home on Monday.
It was awful. It was awful. I don't think anybody deserves to die that way. And it was so evil.
Longtime high school friend Sabra Armstrong said she spoke with Dickey the day before she was murdered. She hopes justice is served.
Very angry. And I know they've caught the guy, and I hope he gets the death penalty.
Meanwhile, family members remember Dickey as someone who deserved better.
She was so generous, so helpful. If I needed something, she said, well, let's go get it.
She loved cats. She had 3 of them. She'd call herself a cat lady all the time.
Corey King would later enter a plea of guilty to armed criminal action and first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Louise Dickey, and also received a life sentence for armed criminal action, which would run concurrently. Corey King remains in prison at the Potosi Correctional Center in Mineral Point, Missouri. Louise Dickey was a kind, caring woman, someone who was devoted to her family and so grateful for those who helped and supported her. Knowing how she must have suffered in the last moments of her life is deeply upsetting and incredibly tragic. As Miranda said, her mother was open and generous, the kind of person who would never hurt anybody. We are so grateful to all of our viewers and all of our patrons, and we'd love you to consider joining our little community over on Patreon. It supports us as a channel, and we couldn't be more appreciative of anyone that does so. It also gives you behind the scenes, extra episodes, and early ad-free access.